Oh, hello there. Shenanigans aside, I've been meaning to make myself a couple new skirts. I was thinking of actually doing like a little set of tutorials in different fabrics, making different styles of skirts. And the first one that I'm going to be making is an A-line skirt out of this really beautiful rust orange wool crepe. I had a dress made out of this a while ago, and I somehow lost it at high school, which is, I don't know how that happened, but it was no longer in my closet, and I really miss it because it's my favorite color. So I thought I would make myself a simple A-line skirt with a straight waistband, and it'll end up probably buttoning up the side or maybe snapping because I don't have a zipper. So this tutorial will be useful to people who are afraid of inserting zippers, like myself, and who don't have a zipper, also like myself. So I hope that's useful if you're looking to make yourself a skirt. And yeah, I guess let's get to cutting out the fabric. I'm super excited about this.
This skirt is a simple A-line shape, so it didn't require much fabric. This was lucky for me as I didn't have as much continuous wool crepe as I would usually use for an A-line skirt. I chose to give my skirt 7 panels, and I traced each panel out with chalk before cutting to ensure that I had enough fabric. The pattern that I'm using is a heavily altered version from the book Gertie Sew's Vintage Casual, but any pattern will do. Or you could use a quarter circle skirt generator online and draft one yourself. This skirt will have a pocket at one side seam and a closure at the other, but before those could be installed, I had to stitch the panels of the skirt together. The skirt panels were stitched together with French seams, giving me a skirt front and a skirt back that would be later stitched together. Next, it was time to install the skirt closure. As I noted, I do not have a zipper in the right color for this skirt, so instead my skirt will close with a snap placket. First, I made the placket by stitching a rectangle of my wool crepe to a stabilizing rectangle of cotton, right sides together, and turning the rectangle inside in. This placket was attached to the back of the skirt, right sides together, leaving about a ½ inch of seam allowance above for the waistband. A facing was applied to the skirt front next to the placket. This was done by folding under the edges of a rectangle of cotton and stitching it to the front of the skirt. Before slip stitching the facing to the front of the skirt, I stitched on 3 snaps. Along with 3 snaps that were attached to the placket, these will serve as the primary way that this skirt placket stays closed. Instead of snaps, I could have also used buttons and buttonholes, but I didn't have enough matching buttons for a button placket. Once the snaps were attached, I used a slip stitch to secure the facing to the front of the skirt. Then I stitched the side seam up until about 1 inch past the beginning of the skirt placket. There isn't a good way that I know or to which I have access that would allow me to finish this seam by machine, so instead I folded under the seam allowances and slip stitched them to the skirt, encasing the raw edges of the seam. The other seam was host to the pocket, as a skirt is never complete until it has a pocket large enough for copious amounts of snacks. To be honest, I'm still not sure the best way to attach a pocket into a seam, and the pocket on this skirt is chaotic, to say the least. I recommend looking for another tutorial on installing inseam pockets, but suffice to say that I installed a pocket, stitched up the seam, and finished off the seam by hand. At this point, my skirt looked like a skirt, though it lacked a waistband and a hem, but it could be snapped open and closed. My waistband is a long rectangle, as long as my waist measurement plus seam allowance and an extra inch for buttoning. I cut 1 waistband piece from wool crepe and 1 from cotton and stitched together around 3 sides. Then I pinned and stitched the waistband to the top of the skirt, only stitching through the wool crepe and holding the cotton aside. After ironing the waistband flat, I folded under the cotton waistband lining and whip stitched it in place. This creates a waistband that looks crisp from the outside and the inside without any visible top stitching. My next step was attaching a button and buttonhole to the waistband. I chose a lone button from my collection that I thought coordinated with my fabric, as well as some embroidery floss that was close to the color of my wool. My buttonhole was stitched by hand in embroidery floss, and the button was attached with the same thread. The last step was to hem my skirt. I chose to add a hem facing, but a simple stitched hem or a hem binding would have also looked quite nice. My hem facing is made up of bias cut strips of cotton, about 4 inches wide. I stitched these together until I had one long strip, ironed under one edge, and pinned the other edge to the hem of my skirt with the right sides together. Then, I stitched along the hem about a half an inch from the edge of the skirt to secure the hem facing in place. Next, I pressed the skirt facing around to the inside of the skirt and pinned it in place. I used a slip stitch to secure the facing to the skirt, cleanly enclosing the hem while still giving it structure.
So I finished the skirt and I'm pretty pleased with it. And I guess we'll do a little bit of a lookbook. This is kind of a summery look, but it's pretty cold out. It is December, so let's put on a cardigan. That's much better, much warmer. I actually made all of these garments. I have a video about making this shirt, and I finished knitting this sweater like a couple days ago. This is the first sweater I've knitted, and I'm pretty pleased with it. But this is not a great look for winter, so let's change things up a little bit. Now we have just a plain shirt. This is thrifted, and I've worn it to death, mended it a bunch of times, but I think this is a nice little look. I really like blue and orange together, so I think this is pretty cute. And I get to show off the button at the side, which is always nice because I'm quite pleased with the button I chose. And let's try this with a sweater. This is pretty peak holiday. I love wearing sweaters over shirts tucked into skirts because I think it's super cozy, keeps me really warm, and I'm just so pleased with this. This is the first time I have worn this sweater. I just finished it, and so I know this isn't a video about this sweater, but I have to say I'm very pleased with it as well. But yeah, this skirt will be pretty versatile. I have other shirts that I'll wear it with, but these are just the two that I've tried it on with, and I'm quite pleased with it.
Thank you for watching this video. Thank you to Ollie for helping film and edit this video. And if you have any questions about the process of making this skirt, feel free to ask in the comments. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.